Let's go to the phones right now and welcome in our guest from the Boston Herald, talking, of course, about the great Doug Kyed, who joins us here on the Christian Arcand Show. Mr. Kyed, how are we doing tonight?
Doing well. How are you doing, Christian?
I'm doing great. Great to have you on. Been a while since we talked with you, and the Patriots have not lost a game. So let's go ahead and start there with this win streak that we saw, and let's get your thoughts on that win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which I thought would be the type of win that would change a lot of people's mind, maybe change some of the Vegas odds. It seems like the market is kind of frozen when it comes to the Patriots. I thought that game would turn more heads. Do you get that sense, or do you think maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree here?
No, I agree with you. I think it probably should have turned more heads, and I guess it didn't really. Maybe it's just the manner in which they won. Obviously, it wasn't Drake Maye's best performance out there. They relied on some big plays, and there were some guys out with injuries for the Bucs. But I thought it should have been a game to turn heads. I think that they showed that the expectations that we even had for them coming into that game should be higher. Like, they should be in a higher echelon of teams when you're talking about power rankings or Super Bowl odds or playoff odds. But yeah, it seems like it didn't fully do that. And I don't think any of these games coming up against the Jets or the Bengals or Giants will do that either. So maybe the next opportunity will be against the Bills. But I mean, winning 7 straight is not easy in this league. Going 8-2 is not easy. Obviously, the Patriots are a good team.
Yeah, they certainly are. And as someone who's in that locker room a lot, I was just talking about sort of the differences between the way Belichick ran things with his system and players that fit into the system, and how everybody was sort of just a cog as opposed to Vrabel, and the way that he really pumps up his players and lets them be individuals and sort of all of that. It's got to be like night and day when you walk into that place and just see the tone and tenor kind of everyone's attitudes, the way they answer questions, all of that. I mean, is it still like hard to recognize? Do you feel like you're even walking into the same locker room even?
Yeah, it is a lot different, and it's from players that you don't necessarily expect it to be coming from. Like, obviously no one knew what Stephon Diggs was going to be like when he came to this team, or some of these veterans. And I really do credit Vrabel almost fully with the culture on this team and with the buy-in, because like this wasn't a slow build to this team. Like, they had to build things back very quickly this offseason by bringing in a bunch of veteran free agents, relying on a lot of rookies. And usually that team chemistry comes over time when guys really get to know each other and care about each other. But it really feels like it happened almost immediately this year. So it's been very positive to see.
Yeah, it certainly has. On the subject of the rookies, Treyveon Henderson, a real coming out party for him, certainly against Tampa Bay. We've seen reports now that it looks like Henderson's going to get the lion's share of the carries here against the Jets on Thursday. Looking at the day that he had outside of those 2 big runs, the Bucs do have a strong run defense, but it's hard to deny just how explosive he can be. Do you think that this is sort of a harbinger of things to come here if they unlocked Henderson?
I mean, to some degree, yes. I think that we will start to see some more of the big plays. But I even got asked for a mailbag for tomorrow. Like, okay, should Treyveon Henderson continue to be the starter when Ramondre Stevenson comes back, or should he go back into his kind of secondary role? And I actually do think that he should probably take a back seat a little bit to Stevenson. I know that's probably not going to be a popular answer, but like, outside of the big plays, outside of the 69-yarder, the 55-yarder, and the 16-yarder, the Patriots were averaging less than a yard per carry in that game, and that was over 16, 17 carries. Vrabel's talked about it. It was tough sledding outside those big plays, and you can't really rely on those big plays. Obviously, it's great to have, but I don't think that that's like something that builds up over time with Treyveon Henderson. I think that he's got that big play ability no matter how many times he's on the field, and you do need someone who can run the ball between the tackles a little bit better. So I think we'll see more of Henderson than we did early in the season. But when Stevenson comes back, I still do think they need some help there between the tackles, and then also just as a pass protector as well.
Speaking of pass protection there, you're right. I mean, that was certainly a big knock on Henderson early on here. And with Drake Maye getting sacked as often as he does, didn't get sacked much by Tampa, despite them blitzing a good amount. Atlanta got to him. Cleveland certainly got to him. As we go further down here, do you think that there's been a concerted effort from Josh McDaniels and the rest of the offensive staff there to try and protect him a little bit more maybe than they would have otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, I think also against the Bucs, they were probably anticipating a decent amount of blitzing, so I think they were trying to get the ball out a little bit earlier. But there was still a decent amount of pressure in this game. But the one sack was when Drake Maye did the thing where he's done it quite a few times already this season, where he tries to scramble up the middle and then winds up getting tackled for a 1-yard loss. And like ultimately, it should probably be a 1-yard loss on a carry for Drake Maye. It winds up being a sack. So I think they did do a better job of keeping him upright in this game, but he was facing a lot of pressure. He was pretty good under pressure, which is obviously a positive. But, yeah, I mean, you need to protect him. You can't be getting sacked 6 times a game or whatever it is. But I looked at all of his sacks last week, and really I think there was only about 11 of the 34 that he had coming into last week that were the offensive line's fault. Most of them are either Drake Maye running out of bounds for a 1-yard loss, or running up the middle for a 1-yard loss, holding on the ball for too long. It's not catastrophic sacks where he's getting sacked for a 9-yard loss most of the time.
We're talking with Doug Kyed of the Boston Herald. As you mentioned, Doug, it wasn't Drake's best game. It was one of his worst games of the year, honestly, statistically anyway. And I say that just because it's the first time in like 2 months his passer rating wasn't over 100. But how would you rate just, observing him in the locker room and on the sidelines and so forth? How would you rate his development as a leader on this team as opposed to his play on the field? How's his leadership skills and abilities been evolving this year, do you think?
I think we're starting to see his personality and his leadership coming out more. I don't think that's an issue. And it's funny because that was a big conversation all throughout the summer of Vrabel saying that he was, pushing Drake Maye to be a leader and pushing him to do the right things. I think we're seeing in the locker room, and like sometimes it comes across as kind of like almost like a no nonsense type personality from Drake Maye, where he's kind of hurrying guys along to get back onto the bus after games, or he's got, it feels like he's almost kind of like an old soul despite being a 23-year-old. He's not really like an aw shucks type of guy in the locker room. So I do see it coming along. I think it's coming along really well. I think the team really has rallied behind him, and obviously having the success that he's had certainly helps. But it feels like he's had this mentality and this leadership ability since the beginning of the season, and I don't think players necessarily see him as like, oh, that's that like 23-year-old kid at this point. I really do think they view him as being their leader, starting quarterback.
With him is the odds-on favorite for MVP. Mike Vrabel is the odds-on favorite for Coach of the Year, and I know there's still 7-8 weeks to go here. Why do you suppose that there's still skepticism that this team is for real when they have the MVP and the Coach of the Year?
Yeah, I think it's probably just what the expectations were coming into the season, how bad they've been the last 2 years. I think some of it's the schedule, obviously, the fact that other than the Bills and Bucs, people just view them as being a team that's beating up on bad teams. But I think that it's just like everyone's priors. Everyone like what they were predicting for the Patriots before the season began is still what they're expecting at this point. And like, I don't know, maybe I'm a culprit of that just as much as everyone else, because like I don't really want to talk about Super Bowl at this point for the Patriots. I don't know if we're at that point with them yet until they continue to prove it throughout the year. I think a lot of that is based on what the expectations for them were coming into the season, and that they're probably not on paper as talented as some of the other teams out there.
What's one player on this team that you don't think's getting the credit they deserve for how good they are?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I think, I don't know. I mean, I guess Will Campbell to some degree. I think that he's been really solid as a rookie left tackle. Garrett Bradbury to some degree as well. He struggled a little bit against Vita Vea, but I mean, people are expecting him to be a disaster this season at center, and he's played pretty good football all season. He's been a great veteran leader. I think he's got good rapport with Drake Maye. It's funny, there's probably a lot of guys like Jalen Hawkins. I think he's having a really good season this year. Robert Spillane, no one really talks about Robert Spillane, but he's been really solid there in the middle. So I just give you like 5 different names. Like there's a lot of guys on this roster that are better than people give them credit for being.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's been a lot of contributions. And Mac Hollins is another guy. I mean, he's led the team in the receiving yards 2 of these games here in the street. Last question. Why is this team so good at stopping the run and so bad at rushing the quarterback? How's that possible?
I think they're actually more middle of the road, below average, somewhere around there at rushing the quarterback. But stopping the run, guys are just swarming to the ball, and that's something that Mike Vrabel has preached since the beginning, that we want everyone rushing the ball. We want to be helping out teammates. So if one guy doesn't bring someone down, then everyone else will. I think that Milton Williams and Christian Barmore can get upfield. They can disrupt things in the middle there, and they can get there quicker, I think, in run defense than they can as pass rushers. As far as the pass rush goes, a lot of it is kind of circumstantial, but I would certainly like to see them better in that degree. I think some of it also is just depth. The Patriots don't have a lot of depth behind Harold Landry and Caleb Von Chason, so I think those guys are probably getting used a little bit too much there on the edge, and that'll slow them down as games go along. So it's good to see Elijah Ponder get a sack against someone as good as Tristan Wirfs. Maybe he can emerge here over the back third of the season and help those guys out a little bit more. But it is interesting. They're very disruptive against the run and not quite as disruptive as pass rushers.
That is the voice of Doug Kyed of the Boston Herald. You can read his stuff there in the Herald and on bostonherald.com just about every day. Doug Kyed, thanks so much for the time tonight. Great to hear from you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Sounds good, Christian.
All right. Doug Kyed there, Boston Herald, joining us here on the Christian Arcand Show.